from 12 to about 23, life was tough. Well, being a young person living with HIV, it was in that age range that I got to discover my HIV status. So there was a lot of stigma, there was a lot of self-denial, there was a lot of anger, hatred. I did not like my mom. I didn't like my sisters, my brothers, because it was after that I realized I am the only one who is positive. For them, they are negative. In my early years of primary, we used to define people living with HIV as walking dead. So when I realized I am a walking dead, I'm like, why would I love these people? They've already made me die. You realize. Yes, so I eventually started rejecting my medication, okay, because of anger.
So a very good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dennis Duke Wonyala. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Dennis Duke UG. Now today we are joined by a very young yet very inspiring lady. Her name is Michelle, but she's gonna tell us all her real name, right? Plus the botanical one. Michelle has an inspiring story, one of a kind story that she has come out. She's bold, really. That's being bold, because not everybody comes out to speak. She's championing, for those that are actually young people living with HIV/AIDS. And so today we wanted to get her story. When did she actually realize that she actually has HIV/AIDS, and how did she feel, among many other things? You're welcome.
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Michelle. How are you?
Pleasure to finally meet you.
You mean you had heard about me?
I had actually watched some of your videos.
That's beautiful. So I'm a celeb, you guys. Don't kunyoma me.
Exactly.
First of all, take us through. Who is Michelle?
Well, Michelle is a 25-year-old Ugandan. Many people actually do not believe I am 25.
Okay. What do they think you are? How old do they think you are?
18.
Okay.
17. So I let them believe what they want to believe.
Okay, you're 25.
Yes.
How has life been till today?
Life before 12 years, life was easy. Yeah, but from 12 to about 23, life was tough.
How tough was it?
Well, being a young person living with HIV, it was in that age range that I got to discover my HIV status. So there was a lot of stigma, there was a lot of self-denial, there was a lot of anger, hatred. Yeah, so that is how tough life was.
So first of all, take us through, where are you born, where is your mother, your father, among many other things?
Well, my mom is in Tororo, because I grew up in Tororo. Yes. My dad lives here in Kampala, in Luzira.
Okay.
Yes.
How many children are you at home?
We were 4, but one is late. Okay. Yeah, so we are 3, 2 girls, 1 boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do all your other siblings have?
No, unfortunately, I'm the only one.
Okay.
Yes. So it's just my parents and I.
You're the last born?
Yes.
So the other ones were the first borns?
Yes.
Could somebody say that maybe by the time they gave birth to the other children, they hadn't gotten the virus yet?
My mom was negative. Actually, they were both negative at the time. So before I was born is where the change happened, and that is how I...
Oh, so that's when they actually contracted the virus, and that's when they conceived you?
Exactly.
So while growing up, the fact that your other siblings weren't in the same state as you, how did they feel?
Well, I think they didn't feel anything negative. They were very, very loving, because they welcomed me, they tolerated me. They actually didn't make me feel exactly. I was loved. Yeah, so it wasn't a problem.
Okay. So when do you actually get to know? Because even then, for them, they didn't know. So when do you come to know?
Well, for them, I really don't know when they got to know. But for me, it really took me a while, because in around 2002, I think that's when my health started deteriorating. Because I first fell sick of chicken pox. Yeah, those are the scars. And then it is after that I started realizing I was going to hospital every now and then. And when I would keep asking my parents, they would tell me it's malaria. It was actually my mom, because my dad was a never around person. Yeah, so I would keep asking her, why are we going to hospital? She'll tell me, no, nothing, just malaria. So it is until sometime early in 2003, I was about 8 years, that I was picked from school. And then they told me we are going to hospital, but I didn't feel sick. So unfortunately, we didn't go to the usual hospital, because we usually used to go to main hospitals. But then this time we're taken to Tasso. So I remember asking her, why Tasso? Like, she told me, no. There's some services that are offered the other side are here, so it's okay. So that is when the suspicions began. But of course, I was still young. Yeah, so a few months later, we were referred to Mbale. That was JCRS in Mbale. It's a branch from Mbale Regional Referral. Joint Clinical Research Center, yes. They were having a program there. So that is when my medication began. It was 23rd September 2003.
Okay.
Yes. So I started medication in 2003, and we used to keep going to Mbale. Now, at that time, me, I was excited about going to Mbale. When we would wake up in the morning and they're like, today we are going. I know I'm going to miss school, I'm going to Mbale. Yeah, so in 2004, a program was introduced at the facility whereby young children, like from 10 to about 18 years, we used to have workshops at the facility. Yeah, so in one of those workshops we used to go for, it used to be usually Saturdays. Yeah, in some of those workshops they would teach us. But of course, at that time, I was too young, like to even sit and listen to what the facilitators were saying. That wasn't my thing. But people used to keep learning, and of course, at the facility, they used to speak Luganda. So that time, I wasn't well conversant with it.
Okay.
So I didn't understand what they were saying. Somewhere in 2005, we were going to the facility with her. And then I decided to read every signpost. So that is when the bitterness began. And I remember entering and I was crying that day. And everyone was asking me what is wrong, and I didn't want to talk to anyone. So I happened to hear one of the nurses counseling a patient that day. And that's when I started hearing words like ARVs, HIV, and I'm like, oh, so all the this. So that is where everything began from.
The fact that your mother, your father didn't open up to you in the beginning and never told you that, hey, look, this is the situation at hand. How did you feel, and how did you react, and how did you treat them?
It made me so angry. I actually, from that day onwards, I hated my family. I was so bitter with everybody. But unfortunately, I failed to find that bitterness with my dad. Somehow I decided to get close to him. Yes. So I did not like my mom. I didn't like my sisters, my brothers, because it was after that that I realized I am the only one who is positive. For them, they are negative. Yes. So that is where the entire hatred thing began from. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you eventually, forgive her?
It took time. It took years. It really took years, because I hadn't yet accepted then. It was a journey for me to acceptance, and my journey to acceptance was in 2018, 2019. Yes, because when I realized that
from 2012, rather from 2003 to 4 until 2012, rather until 2018, yes. 2019, that's when you actually accept that it is this, I'm going to. Wow, it took you that long. Why?
About 15 years. Yes, because you realize in school, in my early years of primary, we used to define people living with HIV as walking dead. So when I realized I am a walking dead, I'm like, why would I love these people? They've already made me die. You realize. Yes, so I eventually started rejecting my medication. Okay, because of anger. Yeah, so I didn't like my family, I didn't like my medication, and I didn't like myself. Yes. So I was on and off medication. Today I take, tomorrow I'm not taking. I can go off for a week, then I come back. So my viral load happened to drop because there is what you call first line. First line is when you're really doing well. Second line, you're faring. Third line, you're in a bad state. So my viral load dropped from first line to second line. And I didn't care. I didn't want to know. They put me in hours and hours of counseling and it just wasn't working. So somewhere in 2017, yes, I remember that was now a period, I think I was in campus. I remember going off medication for 9 months. Yes.
Deliberately?
Yes, it was deliberate.
You did it deliberately?
Yes.
What was the motive behind it?
Well, I remember I was planning to join campus at earlier on. So my plan was to join YMCA. So I asked for a transfer from Bali to Naguru. So Naguru is quite like, there are so many people. When you go there very early in the morning, you leave in the afternoon. So when I failed to join YMCA and went back to Mbale, I still had to keep coming to Naguru monthly. So somehow it's like, but why go there, sit for that long and then and yet I'm not going to take the medication after 1 month, my containers. So I just stopped. It was until after like 9 months that I was like, no. Like within me, I was like, maybe I need to get back to medication, maybe. So I got back to my facility in Bali, and there was a doctor who had been there for quite some time, from the time I joined. Yes. So I went and spoke to him and told him the entire story, what happened, how I got a transfer. And somehow they helped me get back on medication. They reopened my file. And that is again how I was enrolled. But even after being re-enrolled, I was still not taking medication because I just went back there for purposes of, formality. Yeah, so somewhere in around June 2017, now my health started deteriorating. I started getting typhoid, malaria. I was always in hospital after every 2 weeks. Until one time I got so down, I lost a lot of blood. And I first left school, went back home to Tororo. And when going to hospital, I was admitted. Yes. So they tried looking for blood. There was no blood. I was again referred back to Mbale, and that was how I got blood. So it took me about like 2 weeks, for that whole hospital process. Yeah, and somehow after coming out of that thing, I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to start taking medication, because if I was about to die here, I don't want to die. But I believe still that wasn't a landing point for me, because even after that, I came out. I started taking medication fine, but still somewhere along the way, I again dropped. So again, around January 2018, the same thing came back. I remember again, now that time I was in Kampala here because I was working. So I remember falling so sick again. That time I couldn't even enter a taxi. Yes, it was so hard to lift my leg in a taxi. So I was again taken back home, put on various types of treatment. That time the good thing was I didn't end up in hospital. But still it was so bad. Yes.
So it was until you met this gentleman?
Yes.
Okay.
Who happened to be my counselor.
Okay.
Yeah. So he did counsel me, but the point I realized I was really changing was when I discovered he was also living positive. Yes. So after a number of his sessions, I decided to go online and meet, if I can find a community of people who are also living positive. Yes, so that's when I came across Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV. And I think it was timely because at that time they were preparing for the Y Plus Summit. Have you heard of it? Yes, that was in late 2018, and the summit is usually 2019. So I checked the options for attending. It was free. and they had even given a contact to somebody to call, and I did get in touch, and I happened to attend the summit. Now, the very interesting bit was, during that summit, I entered the hall, and I met about 400 young people seated in there. I remember standing at a distance, and I'm like, all these people are living positive. And I remember even asking myself, so why was I killing myself for nothing? And that was the journey towards. That was how it all began. The sessions, the people who spoke, everything was transforming. And after that summit, I purposed, I'm not going to miss my medication again. And since around March 2019 to date, my viral load results in hospital have really been excellent, because of Uganda Network of Young People Living with HIV and because of that counselor friend of mine.
Let me take you a little bit back. While growing up, the fact that you were the only child at home that had, this virus, were you treated in any way different?
No.
Maybe, say, they had special care for you as a child?
No, I was treated like everyone else.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about your family, other members, like uncles, aunties? Then they feel bad that, hey, what is this?
Not really, because I actually have another auntie also on my mom's side who is living positive.
Okay.
Yeah, and she has 2 grown sons, so it wasn't really big.
Okay.
thing. Yeah.